Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, March 10th, and boy, do we have a lot to get into. The NFL free agency tampering period has officially started. The real free agency date starts in 2 days, but the official date, as always, is today, and it has been a heck of a day so far, including all of the massive moves that took place this weekend. There is so much to get through. We will go over everything. We'll go over the earth-shattering, league-altering moves that took place over the weekend. We'll go over where all the quarterbacks stand now, as well as the defensive players and the offensive players, before getting into a couple trades that went down today and over the weekend. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to see, anything at all that you would like to hear, go ahead and put that in the comments. Put it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, March 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show here with all the moves from over the weekend. Then we'll get into the Jets and all the quarterback stuff, like Matt has said, Justin Fields over there. But we're going to start off with the off-season moves that took place over the weekend. So we're starting off with the biggest non-quarterback deal in the history of the NFL. Myles Garrett. There was a whole fight over him trying to be traded out of there. He had a whole statement where he said, "I didn't come to go Cleveland to Canton. I want to win rings," which is a beautiful sentiment, right? That's something that you don't hear a lot sometimes. You just want to go out, and you don't hear the players say, "I care about winning. I care about the team more than I care about money more." But really, at the end of the day, what we've learned today more than anything else is the fact that money talks. Money talks louder than words could ever. Money talks louder than the wanting to win a Super Bowl. Money talks louder than trying to get you out of Cleveland, Ohio, as he's accepted a 4-year, $160 million deal, again, making him the richest non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. 4 years, $40 million per year. That is the same contract that Daniel Jones signed with the New York Giants. Now, of course, this is a little bit different. There's different structures in there, but this is a massive deal. This puts a lot of pressure on a lot of other teams, namely the Bengals. The Bengals have promised Jamar Chase that he will become, in the media at least, the highest paid non-quarterback, which as of a couple weeks ago was $35 million. Now we're looking at $40 million. Next up, outside of him, you also have Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is expecting a new contract, and he is going to be in the range and resetting what Max Crosby and Myles Garrett have done over the last couple of days. This is a massive turn of events for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, who are already a little bit cap-strapped, and the Bengals, who, of course, already one of the cheapest organizations because they simply just don't have the money there. It's going to be a whole mess over there. But Myles Garrett, in my opinion, the best non-quarterback in the sport. He gets paid the amount of money that he deserves. There's not a single person out there that I've seen that says he doesn't deserve that much money. Myles Garrett is a special specimen. Myles Garrett is someone that you look at and you say that is one of the best defensive players of all time. You go out and he is the best defensive player in the game right now. A guy who has won Defensive Player of the Year. He's been snubbed a couple times. Second in the league in sacks last year, despite having a down season. He is incredible. If the Browns can build anything around him, if the Browns can bring in a competent quarterback, if the Browns can bring in someone that can pass rush on the other side, this is a defense that's going to be dangerous because Myles Garrett is there. And I'm shocked it didn't take that long. I thought this was going to be a thing that would be like a Brandon Ayuk situation, where it would go throughout the entire offseason, months and months of will he get traded, won't he get traded, go through the draft, will he get traded at the draft, will he get traded after the draft, is it going to be for this year's picks, next year's picks, but at the end of the day, money talks. Myles Garrett gets his bag, and he absolutely deserves it. But he wasn't the only one to get a mega deal. Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, a quarterback that, again, one of the top 4 guys in the league, reigning MVP, a 6-year, $330 million deal. $250 million of that fully guaranteed. This is a massive contract. Josh Allen was already a couple years into one of his other big contracts. Not only does this allow the Bills to spread money out over time, because it's a little bit backloaded, not as much that would have been due this year, as a lot of money would have started to be due for Josh Allen this year had they not done anything with the contract, but it locks him down for another 6 seasons. In the long run, not only is this good for the Bills currently, as they're able to get a lot more contracts on the books, as they're able to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency, but it helps them in the long run. What's already going to look like a bargain for quarterbacks, he's tied for now second in the NFL for highest paid quarterbacks, making $55 million a year. Only Dak Prescott makes more money. So it seems like teams have sort of settled on that number of $60 million being the most that they're willing to pay. This is a lot of money for one of the best players in the NFL, but it's going to be a bargain in a couple years. We talk about this all the time, right? This is why you want to get ahead of paying your players. This is why you want to get your guys the money that they deserve now, because as we look into the future, 5 years from now, $55 million is going to be nothing. Maybe now it hurts the pocketbook a bunch, but $55 million for an ever-increasing cap, a cap that just went up $25 million, it makes it a whole lot easier to swallow when you're paying a guy like Josh Allen that much money as opposed to paying a guy like Dak Prescott 60 or a guy like Brock Purdy 65 or 60 or whatever he's going to ask for in the offseason. These are massive, massive deals. And then the Seahawks. The Seahawks have been all over the place this weekend. They trade Geno Smith to the Raiders. One of the most shocking moves of the postseason so far. He teams back up with his former head coach in Pete Carroll. This came after they had disagreements about their contract. Apparently, the Seahawks offered Geno Smith a very similar contract to the one that they ended up giving to Sam Darnold. He said no. And that makes sense. Geno Smith, in my opinion, is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Geno Smith is a guy that deserves to be paid with the best of the quarterbacks. I know he's in his 30s, so you don't want to give him that super long-term deal, but you want to give him something like a 3-year, $150 million contract, somewhere along those lines. I think that's completely reasonable and fair for a guy like Geno Smith to get. He is someone that's going to immediately raise what this Raiders team can do. They have some solid weapons. Brock Bowers set records in his rookie season as a tight end, not just as a tight end, but as a guy that catches passes. He also has Jacoby Myers, who's a really solid number 1 receiver. They can get somebody else in the draft or in free agency. A lot of wide receivers are still left out there for them to grab. It's going to be awesome. And they only gave up a third for him. That is a steal. Geno Smith, again, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You get him for a 3rd-round pick. You take that to the bank. You do that 10 out of 10 times. I just don't understand what the Seahawks are doing. They're a team that was the first team out of the playoffs. They were 10-7. They just missed the playoffs because of tiebreakers last year. And not only do they trade Geno Smith, but then they turn around and trade DK Metcalf. They trade DK Metcalf to the Steelers, who then turn around and extend the Pro Bowl wide receiver. 5 years, $150 million. He's going to be making $33 million this year with his current salary and then the extra guarantees that were put upon on top of it when he was extended by the Steelers. The Steelers get back a 2nd-round pick, and they do a day 3 pick swap. This hurts if you're a Seahawks fan, right? This is a Seahawks team that was this close to making it back to the playoffs, and now they're completely blowing it up. They've decided not really to blow it up entirely, but to move on in a different direction that just doesn't make any sense to me. This is a Seahawks team that was set up, if they had just fixed the offensive line, to win their division potentially next season with the skill sets that they have, with the players that they have, with everybody that they had already brought back, and everybody that they've brought back in free agency. Instead, they turn to a solution that does not quite make enough sense, especially when you look at Sam Darnold's strengths and weaknesses, but we'll get more into that when we talk about the quarterbacks in our next segment. But the Seahawks just don't make any sense to me right now. DK Metcalf and his fit with the Steelers, though, is really interesting. You basically get a souped-up version of George Pickens. So you have 2 of the same wide receiver on each side, but the big question for the Steelers is who's going to throw the ball to them, right? It had thought that it was going to be Justin Fields. He decides not to. He signs with the New York Jets, right? Maybe Aaron Rodgers comes in. There's talks of that. maybe it goes to a guy like Russell Wilson returning. But it doesn't look like the Steelers really have a quarterback in place. There's a couple guys out there that they could get, but the Steelers go out and extend a wide receiver that they haven't had, a guy that is the same wide receiver as George Pickens. Their team hasn't changed that much. It's good to have a second option, but to have two guys with the exact same skill set, it's not necessarily the greatest fit in my mind. I think they would have been better to go out and get a guy like Cooper Kupp. Probably would have been cheaper anyway. They go out and get those guys. Maybe they trade or sign a guy like Keenan Allen. This is someone that could come in and immediately fix what's going on with the Steelers. They just need to get a quarterback in before I really pass judgment on if this was a good deal or not. And the final big move that took place before the free agency frenzy really started, Davante Adams signed with the Rams. This is a move that I love, love, love. Davante Adams is a little bit older, 32 years old. That's fine. What he's going to be able to do is provide a completely different skill set at receiver. With this news, it kind of spells the end of any kind of reunion that might have been there for Cooper Kupp returning. He's come out and they've said that they're going to release him if they can't have a trade come out, which means they have literally no leverage. When the new league year begins in a couple days, that is when he will hit the open market, and I think he'll get a pretty good bag once he hits the open market, but he has to hit the open market first. Davante Adams is going to provide a whole different set of skills than a guy like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp have. We just talked about having two guys that do the same thing in Pittsburgh with DK Metcalf and George Pickens. It was kind of the same thing with the Rams. Cooper Kupp got outshined by the young player who's a top 5 receiver in this league. Now you get a guy that can complement his skill sets, go down the field, kill it with those short routes. He does a lot of the same things that Cooper Kupp can do, but he also provides that deep field threat that you have to put your number one corner on him, and it's going to let Puka Nacua really do his thing. Or you got to put a lot of attention on Puka Nacua, and it's going to let a guy like Davante Adams do his thing. You also have Matthew Stafford in the quarterback room, and he can do his magic. Two of the best wide receiver seasons in the history of the NFL have been quarterbacked by Matthew Stafford. Obviously, you have that Megatron season back when he was with the Lions, but then that Cooper Kupp Triple Crown season just a couple years ago, still one of the best wide receiver seasons in the history of the NFL by statistics, right? It might not be quite as legendary, but that is one of those seasons that's going to stick around in history for a very long time. Both of those quarterbacked by one Matthew Stafford. You get Davante Adams in that system with Puka Nacua. This is a dangerous, dangerous offense, and I love that fit with the Rams. But let me know what your thoughts are on any of these pre-free agency moves. There were lots of huge ones that took place. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we take a look at where the quarterbacks stand. Lots of major quarterback news going on today, including Justin Fields and Sam Darnold finding new homes. What does this mean as the rest of the quarterback dominoes try and find a new home? We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.